Welcome to the deep dive. We sift through the sources so you get the shortcut to the knowledge. Today, we're looking at a pretty extraordinary figure from the 20th century. His life story. It's like a plot twist, a dramatic reversal of fortune, you could say. Imagine someone basically guaranteed wealth, medical renown, top-tier status in London's elite circles, who just turns around and walks away from it all.
Yeah, we're diving into David Martin Lloyd-Jones, DMLJ, as he's often known. Now, you might recognize the name, perhaps, as that powerful evangelical preacher at London's Westminster Chapel later on. But the real story, the one that jumps out from our sources, starts way earlier. It starts with him as, believe it or not, a medical prodigy.
Right.
This is the guy who was chief clinical assistant to Lord Horder,
The king's physician.
the king's own physician, practicing on Harley Street. Doesn't get much more prestigious than that.
That's quite the setup, and the sources are really clear, aren't they? He was offered an assistant professorship, set up for a career where the money, the emoluments, as they put it, were practically unlimited.
Limitless.
So our mission today is to trace this, frankly, seismic shift. From his solid Welsh roots, that intense intellectual background, through that incredible medical success, to this almost unbelievable career change, and then chart his ministry in Aberfan and London.
And look, the insight here, it really goes beyond theology, doesn't it? It's a fascinating look at leadership driven purely by conviction. We're trying to understand how this very unique background, the precise diagnostic thinking of a doctor, completely reshaped how he communicated, how he addressed what he saw as people's core needs.
It's about purpose over paycheck, essentially, over guaranteed success.
Exactly. A deep dive into prioritizing purpose.
Okay, so let's get into it. The making of this physician preacher, born in Cardiff, 1899. But a key influence seems to be the family moving to Longteetho in 1906.
Right, a Welsh-speaking farming community. And the home environment sounds incredibly intellectually stimulating, very strong literary tradition.
Avid readers, the sources say. His younger brother, Vincent.
Yeah, Vincent Lloyd-Jones. Went on to be president of the Oxford Union, even knew C.S. Lewis. Apparently, he'd read through Dickens and Walter Scott before he was even 15.
Wow.
So you get the picture. This wasn't just a casual reading household. It was like an intellectual training ground, honing that analytical ability from a young age.
And that sharpness clearly translated into medicine. He gets into St. Bartholomew's Hospital, Barts, in 1916. He's only 16.
Exceptionally young, yeah. And he didn't hang about. By 1923, he's already got his MD, his doctorate.
For research on what? Subacute bacterial endocarditis?
Yeah, basically complex infections of the heart valves. Doing that level of research, getting his doctorate that fast, that young, it just shows he was operating at a really elite level.
He wasn't just on track to be a GP.
Oh, no. He was heading towards being one of the top specialists in the country. And by 1927, it's official. Chief clinical assistant to the king's physician. You know, the absolute peak of medical prestige at the time.
So he has it all laid out. But the sources point to this turning point, this crisis, starting around 1923. He described it as a Holy Spirit quickening. And it wasn't just a career wobble. They described this intense spiritual, psychological battle, choosing between medicine and ministry.
Well, the drama is palpable in the accounts. It says he literally lost over 20 pounds in weight wrestling with this decision.
20 pounds? That's serious.
It shows it wasn't just indecisiveness. It was this physical, gut-wrenching struggle over his future.
Yeah.
He came to believe he couldn't just do both part-time.
Right.
Both God and mammon. That worldly success demanded everything, his whole focus.
Then he made the choice. But what's really interesting is how that medical background didn't just vanish. It stayed with him, profoundly shaping his approach to preaching.
That's the absolute key insight, I think. The sources consistently point this out. His sermons often follow the structure of a medical diagnosis.
Awesome.
Well, think about it. First, like a physician, he'd carefully lay out the symptoms, the anxiety, the emptiness, the moral confusion he saw in 20th century life.
Okay.
Then he'd delve into the cause, using scripture to diagnose the underlying spiritual condition, the root problem.
And only then.
Only then would he propose the cure, the remedy offered by the gospel. It was incredibly logical, methodical, almost clinical, you could say.
So practical and structured. And apparently, that medical curiosity stayed with him for life.
Absolutely. He kept up this habit, reading the British Medical Journal and Pulse, the medical newspaper, every single Saturday night. For decades.
Why? Just to keep up?
Seems like it. He wanted to stay connected to the physical realities, the scientific understanding of the people he was addressing. He wasn't just treating souls in isolation. He was concerned with the whole person.
A diagnostician in the pulpit, translating medical precision into theological authority.
You've got it.
Yeah.
Which brings us to that huge transition moment. You really have to grasp the scale of this decision back then.
Yeah, the popular magazine John Bull apparently wrote about it with just sheer astonishment.
Unveiled amazement was the phrase used. They just couldn't fathom it.
What did they say exactly?
They pointed out he was still under 30, turning his back on this amazing career, holding emoluments almost without limit to go be a pastor in Port Talbot for £300 a year.
300 pounds a year, compared to Harley Street potential.
It's an almost unimaginable financial leap downwards.
Yeah.
Trading guaranteed high society wealth for a modest stipend in a struggling industrial town.
And that contrast is stark, isn't it? Fashionable Harley Street, the pinnacle of medical London, versus Sandfields, Aberon, a poor working-class Dockland area. He deliberately chose what was called pioneer work there, a small mission center, just 93 members, mostly miners, tin plate workers, people hit hard by the Depression.
But here's the crucial part, the DMLJ's own view on it. He absolutely refused to let anyone call it a sacrifice.
He pushed back.
Vigorously. He's quoted saying, "I gave up nothing. I received everything. I count it the highest honor that God can confer on any man to be a herald of the gospel."
Wow. So for him, it wasn't a loss, it was a gain, an honor.
Totally. He saw it as completely inevitable, like following a route clearly marked on a map. No real choice involved, just obedience to this overwhelming call.
Okay, so he had this absolute clarity, but it wasn't entirely smooth sailing initially, was it? He didn't have the standard theological training.
No, not at all. He was trained in diagnosing heart conditions, not, systematic theology or church history.
So that caused a bit of friction.
It did. Some hesitation from the establishment. He was initially only approved as a lay preacher. There were questions, naturally, about whether just having a brilliant medical mind was enough for ministry.
But the results on the ground spoke for themselves, right?
Right.
His success in Sandfields was immediate.
Unqualified is the word used. Instantaneous, almost.
Right.
You had this sort of local fame, the Harley Street man who gave it all up, combined with this incredibly powerful, authoritative preaching style. It just clicked,
Became a phenomenon.
pretty much. Remember, this is during the Depression. People were desperate for hope, for answers. The crowds were huge. They had to open the chapel doors 2 hours early sometimes.
2 hours early, just to fit people in.
Yeah, just to manage the flow. The novelist Rhys Davies, who was from the area, described the place as being unhygienically packed, just crammed,
And the church grew.
exploded, from 93 members to 530. Seeing that kind of impact, the Welsh Presbyterians basically had to fast-track him. They waived some rules and ordained him pretty quickly, October 1927. His preaching just worked right from the start.
And that impact wasn't just local, was it? It went international fairly quickly.
Yeah, by 1932, his reputation had spread enough for him to do a North American tour. The reports from Toronto where amazing congregations got so big they needed special police just to handle the traffic outside the church.
Police for traffic control at a church service.
Apparently so. And later that year, he's preaching to nearly 6,000 people at the Chautauqua Conference in the States. His name was definitely getting out there on a global scale.
So it seems almost inevitable that London would eventually call him back.
Right, and the key moment comes in 1935. G. Campbell Morgan, who was the giant of the Free Church pulpit at the time, hugely respected, hears DMLJ preach
Where was that?
at the Royal Albert Hall. Morgan was so impressed he invited DMLJ to join him as co-pastor at Westminster Chapel, a major pulpit.
Accepting that was a big move. It put him in line to lead London's largest congregational church. But it also meant sharing a pulpit with someone theologically quite different.
That's a really interesting dynamic, because DMLJ was deeply Calvinist, stressing God's absolute sovereignty and salvation. Morgan, on the other hand, was Arminian.
Meaning he believed people could sort of lose their salvation, fall from grace.
Exactly. A view DMLJ found, and I quote, monstrous. He was very clear about their differences.
So how did that work? Two pastors with such fundamental disagreements.
Well, it speaks volumes about Morgan's priorities, perhaps. He recognized DMLJ's sheer preaching power and likely saw him as crucial for Westminster Chapel's continued influence, even with a doctrinal clash.
The institution's strength came first.
It seems that way. Ensuring the chapel remained, this powerhouse of evangelical preaching maybe took precedence over perfect theological alignment between the two leaders, at least for a time.
And that influence was certainly tested during World War II.
Hugely tested. The chapel building itself was hit by bombs 3 times.
3 times, and it survived.
It survived, yes. And during that period, while many churches were reportedly quite empty,
The huge empty churches era.
DMLJ's direct, forthright evangelical preaching was drawing large numbers. Lots of visitors, servicemen looking for something solid amidst the chaos.
He didn't shy away from talking about the war directly.
Not at all. He framed it theologically, calling war an expression of the one great central problem of Finn. Offering that kind of authoritative diagnosis in uncertain times clearly resonated.
Then Morgan retired, and DMLJ became sole pastor in 1943. That's when his influence really consolidated.
Absolutely. Post-war, especially during events like the 1951 Festival of Britain, attendance could peak at around 2,500 people for special services. That cemented Westminster Chapel's position as London's largest congregational church.
But his impact wasn't just filling queues, was it? He was building things, creating resources.
That's right. He was instrumental in founding and leading the Evangelical Library. By the late 70s, it was this huge resource, over 50,000 books, a real intellectual bedrock for that strand of evangelicalism.
And he also led the Westminster Fellowship.
Yes, for 25 years, that was really significant. It was a forum bringing together ministers from different denominations, all focused on strengthening classic evangelical Protestantism. He wasn't just building his own church, he was nurturing a wider movement across the UK.
Such a long and impactful career. He finally stepped down in 1968. Why then? Was it health?
Interestingly, no, not primarily illness. The sources say he felt a strong conviction that his next task was different. It was about getting his sermons published, those massive series on Romans, Ephesians, and traveling more widely.
Shifting focus from the pulpit to the page and global ministry.
Exactly. He passed away in 1981 after more than 54 years in ministry.
So if we try to sort of boil down his legacy, what was the key to his success?
I think it lies in that unique synthesis. He took historic, robust Calvinistic theology, viewed it through the lens of his sharp diagnostic medical mind, and then articulated it in a way that felt intensely relevant to 20th century people. He offered a clear diagnosis of the human condition as he saw it and a very authoritative cure. And in doing so, he really helped revitalize evangelical church life when many other churches were struggling.
Quite a journey. From rejecting that guaranteed path of wealth and status because of a calling he described as being as clear and inevitable as a route on the map. Which really leaves us with a final thought for you, the listener. How do we measure the real value of a career? Is it the guaranteed salary, the fame, the emoluments? Or is it something else, like the clarity of purpose, the strength of conviction?
And maybe even the willingness to walk away from the seemingly obvious path when that conviction demands it.
Something to think about. We'll leave it there for this deep dive. Join us next time.